warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, good morning everyone. How are you this morning?
Morning,
Morning, I'm good.
Morning, I'm good. Thank you.
Right. So this morning in the Zoom now, we will be talking webinar about reproductive health. Know yourself, know your reproductive health. Before that, let me introduce my group. We are from group 5. My name is Amanda Rizki Firliyanti Gunawan. Study number is 6411422027 as the narrator and my partner. Dinara Izzah Shafira. Study number is 6411422001 as speaker. Abir Reva Ayuningtyas, study number is 6411422019 as speaker. Ade Yuliana, study number is 6411422044 as speaker. Nadya Rizqia, study number is 6411422042 as scripter. Siti Aisyah, study number is 6411422013 as director and editor. Sasqia Sirmaya Diva Puspawardani, study number is 641142200021 as moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me, Amanda Rizki Firliyanti Gunawan, as the narrator to read the agenda for the webinar Reproductive Health, Know Yourself, Know Your Reproductive Health. The first event is the opening. The second event is listening to the Indonesian national anthem. The last event was closing. Let's open the webinar this morning by saying Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The second event is listening to the national anthem Indonesia Raya. Attendees are asked to sit up straight. Operator, please. Okay, and the third event is a webinar which will be guided by Sasqia Sirmaya Diva Puspawardani as the moderator. Then, I give it to the moderator to be able to start the webinar this morning. The moderator, time is yours.
All right, thank you Amanda for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. How are you this morning?
Pretty good morning, Sasqia.
All right, hopefully we are all in good condition and always full of blessing. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar to get to know about reproductive health. Know yourself, know your reproductive health in virtual Zoom this morning. Hopefully, we will be able to complete this webinar smoothly until the end of the event. Amin. Before starting the webinar, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sasqia Sirmaya Diva Puspawardani, and I am the moderator at today's webinar. All right, without waiting any longer, let's start this webinar by reading the prayer first, according to our respective religions and beliefs. Praying started. spraying finish. I hope this webinar will run smoothly from start to finish. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded to be available for viewing post-conference. If you have any question for the presenter during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. I will bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. This webinar is divided into 3 sessions. The first session is the presentation of the material by the presenters. Then the second session is the question and answer session. And the last is the closing session. Alright, thank you, operator. Now we will start the webinar. As in the title of the webinar, today we will talk about reproductive health. Know yourself, know your reproductive health. Who doesn't know reproductive health? Reproductive health is complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not only free from disease or disability. In all aspects related to the reproductive system, its function and process. Alright, without any further ado, let's start today's webinar. However, before starting this webinar, please give me permission to read the curriculum vitae of our presenter. Our first presenter is Dinara Izzah Shafira. She is lecturer in reproductive health or maternal and child health. And here I will read her curriculum vitae. Her last education was in Wan Terusan Nunyai High School and Semarang State University, majoring in public health. Her experience was lecturer in reproductive health or maternal and child health, Semarang State University 2016 until present, become Secretary of the Department of Public Health at Semarang State University 2017 until present, published 3 books on the importance of reproductive health for adolescents, established a service program for victims of sexual violence, especially teenagers. Next. Okay, I will read the curriculum vitae of our second presenter. She is Abir Ayuningtyas, the Health Information System Advisor at International Planned Parenthood Federation, or IPPF. Her last education was in Wan Kalianda High School and Semarang State University, majoring in public health. And her experience is design and launch a signature training program for leading human rights organization in Mexico in collaboration with the MacArthur and Ford Foundation. Designed the groundbreaking program Women Rebuilding Their Communities to support women's organization responding to the disaster. Founded and directed an area to provide consulting service to foundation and non-profit. Next. Then for our third presenter, she is Ade Yuliana. She is the chairman of the Central Java Indonesian Family Planning Association, or PKBI. The following is her curriculum vitae. Her last education was in Wanwawo High School and Semarang State University, majoring in public health. And her experience is PKBI, Central Java HIV Program Employment Officer, 2019 until 2020. Monitoring and evaluation of family planning programs in Central Java, 2018 until now, and coordination and person in charge of the family planning program in Central Java. Alright, I have read the curriculum vitae of our presenter, and without waiting any longer, let's start the first session of this webinar with our first presenter, Dinara Izzah Shafira. Welcome, Miss Dinara. How are you this morning?
I'm good. And you, Sasqia, how are you today?
I'm good too. Thank you. Great to hear that. All right. Then for Miss Dinara, screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sasqia, for being a moderator. I appreciate the introduction. It's great to be speaking with all of you today. Previously, I would like to convey a little understanding of what reproductive health is. So, reproductive health is a state of being physically, emotionally, behaviorally, and socially healthy to option reproductive health. Here, I will discuss two topics related reproductive health. The first topic is why focus on the reproductive health of young adults. And the second topic is defining young adults. Hmm. Okay, let's just go straight to the first topic, namely why focus on the reproductive health of young adults. Questions like this often arise in society. Why do we have to focus on the reproductive health of young adults? Is reproductive health only for young adults? As in PowerPoint, more than one out of every eight people worldwide is between the age of 10 and 24. This means that the large population in the world is made up of children and teenagers. That's why we focus on reproductive health for young adults. Next slide, please. Next. Next. Oh, okay. The second reason why focus on the reproductive health of young adults is that youth are asset. They are a great potential resource. Youth are the next generation of the nation. They have great potential to change the state of a country and they have a bright future. Young people are a great potential resource for the future with fresh energy, idea, and hopes. They are resilient, energetic, and eager to learn. To reach this potential, they need to acquire skill and knowledge. This includes understanding and coping with reproductive health risks and consequences. So, those are the two reasons why focus on the reproductive health of young adults. Next slide, please. If we don't pay attention to reproductive health in young adults, it will cause a lot of risks and consequences that will be faced by young adults. Reproductive health issues are critical for young adults. The term reproductive health in a broad sense refers to the health and well-being for women and men in terms of sexuality, pregnancy, birth, and related conditions, infection, and illnesses. The webinar focused on reproductive health issues related to pregnancy and STIs, including HIV. Youth have high rates of unprotected sexual activity. This leads to untreated and to early pregnancy, STIs, including HIV, AIDS, and unsafe abortion. Also, young people, particularly women, often face sexual violence or exploitation. These risks can result in serious medical, psychological, social, and economic consequences. The next is HIV/AIDS among youth. Next slide, please. About half of all new HIV infections are among youth. The first HIV/AIDS epidemic among youth remains largely invisible to adults. Recently, many teenagers have been suffering from HIV/AIDS. This is because teenagers do not pay attention to their reproductive health, and at the age of teenager now, they will play around in search of love. The second is that stopping HIV/AIDS requires working with youth in comprehensive way. Then the last one is that young women are several times more likely to get infected than young men. Why? The young women have a much higher prevalence of HIV than young men. Behavioral factors could not fully explain the discrepancy in HIV prevalence between men and women. Despite the tendency for women to have older partners, young men were at least as likely to encounter an HIV-infected partner as young women. It's likely that the greater susceptibility of women to HIV infection is an important factor with explaining the male-female discrepancy in HIV prevalence and in driving the epidemic. Herpes simplex virus type 2 infection, which is more prevalent in young women than in young men. It's probably one of the factors that increase women's susceptibility to HIV infection. Biologically, women are more vulnerable than men to infection because of the greater mucous area exposed to HIV during penile penetration. Women under the age of 17 are at even greater risk because they have an underdeveloped cervix and low vaginal mucus production. Concurrent sexual transmitted disease increase the risk of HIV transmission. Women's risk is also related to their exposure to gender inequality in society. The social and economic pressures of poverty exacerbate women's risks. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the transition from childhood to adulthood is a universal process that varies greatly by individual and by region, country, and culture. The beginning point of this transition of both females and males is usually considered the onset of puberty, which occurs at various ages. There is no clearly definite ending point for the transition from childhood to adulthood. Puberty is the physical process of sexual maturation that includes the development of secondary sexual characteristics, such as breasts for girls and increased pubic hair for boys and girls. Naturally, during puberty, males begin to produce sperm and have their first ejaculation. Females have their first menstruation, called menarche, and begin ovulation. Puberty occurs gradually over several years, in addition to becoming psychologically mature during the transition stage. Youth undergo psychological and cognitive change. Young people become less dependent on parents and more involved with peers. They begin to form identity as individual and develop future capacity for independent relationship. During this time, young people often move from being socially and financially dependent to being relatively independent. In certain cultures, others often or processes also help to define this transition, such as formal initiation, practice, and tradition. Then we will move on to the second topic. Next slide, please. The second topic is defining young adults. Youth is best understood a period of transition from the dependence of children to adult independence. That's why, as a category, youth is more fluid than other fixed age group. Yet, age is the easy way to define this group, particularly in relation to education and employment, because youth is often referred to a person between the age of leaving compulsory education and finding their first job. Different words, definition, age range, and characteristic are used to describe the transition from childhood to adulthood. The World Health Organization, or WHO, used the word adolescence for age 10 to 19 and the term young people to cover age 10 to 24. The U.S. Agency for International Development used the term young adults to refer to individuals in transition from childhood to adulthood, without specifying an age span. Teenagers generally refers to those aged 13 to 19. The term youth has no formal definition by age range and is used in many contexts. Okay, next. The next discussion is regarding factors affecting the reproductive health needs of young adults. Although age is one way of defining the young adults population, it may not be the most important factor when considering their reproductive health needs of young adults. Other factors to consider are marital status, gender norms, whether sexual relations have begun, whether young people are in out of school, whether they have already had a child or an abortion, their economic status, whether they live in a rural or urban setting, peer pressure, and political and cultural climates. The next one is married and unmarried youth. Next slide, please, operator. Married and unmarried youth have common biological characteristics that affect reproductive health, regardless of marital status. Young adults also have a common need for accurate information about their body, sexuality, communication in relationship, contraceptive, pregnancy, and other issues. Marital status does, however, affect the context in which youth seek and receive reproductive health information, as well as their access to service. Youth who are married generally have the same access to reproductive health service as the married adults. Unmarried youth, however, often face more obstacles than do those who are married. Also, the contraceptive needs of unmarried youth are frequently different from the needs of married youth. For example, unmarried youth may want to avoid pregnancy, while married youth may want to begin childbearing. Next slide. Or the next slide is gender affect the reproductive health of youth. The term gender refers to the different roles and relationships of males and females as determined by the society and culture in which they live. Many societies place a higher value on males than females. Gender roles and norms have a major impact on the reproductive health of young adults. Gender affect expectations regarding the sexual activity of boys and girls. For example, in a survey for factory workers in Thailand, aged 15 to 24, a majority of men said premarital intercourse was expected of them, and that boys who had not had intercourse were ridiculed by their peers. Women said premarital intercourse was unacceptable and could damage the family reputation. Regarding responsibility for contraception, young men view contraception as a woman's responsibility. But young women would not consider seeking or requesting contraception for fear of being accused of a sexual activity. Difference in expectation create separate standards for males and females in terms of the social and economic consequence of pregnancy for adult girls is many countries, and unplanned pregnancy usually means expulsion from school, while teenage fathers can remain in school. Gender affect the interaction between clients and providers. Service tend to be focused on the females, especially for contraception. So boys stay away. Girls are especially sensitive when discussing sensitive issues with a provider. A difference between the sexes can magnify a power differential between client and provider. Next slide. The next one is gender affect HIV/AIDS other risks. The degree of risk for HIV/AIDS infection also vary because of gender. Males generally have more ability to use a condom than females. Males report knowing how to use a condom correctly, how to negotiate condom use, and being willing to buy a condom more often than females, according to a Cameroon study. Girls saw using condom as sign of love and protection, whereas boys tend to use them with casual partners. According to peer group discussion in South Africa, gender also affects the cultural acceptance of behaviors and practice that can jeopardize reproductive health. Females are at higher risk of sexual violence, including rape or domestic violence, than are boys. A recent demographic and health survey in Egypt, for example, showed that nearly 9 of every 10 women believe beaten by husband are justified under some circumstances, and almost one-third report being beaten during pregnancy. Female genital mutilation practiced in some cultures can also jeopardize reproductive health. The World Health Organization reports that some 2 million girls undergo the procedure annually. Girls have less economic autonomy than boys, so they may rely on sugar daddies or sex work to meet their economic needs. The last slide is about young adult and contraceptive use. Next slide, please. Okay. Few married youth use contraception before the birth of their first child. Among unmarried youth, a U.S. study found that young people typically delay using contraception until about a year after beginning sexual activity. In surveys in Latin America and Kenya, unmarried youths say the main reason they did not use contraception was because they did not expect to have sex, and that time sexual activity tends to be sporadic and unplanned among young adults. Two other common reasons youth give in surveys are that they lack information about contraceptive and they lack access to contraceptive. For example, surveys in Nigeria and Guatemala showed that without accurate information, youth may have unnecessary fears about the effect of contraception on their health. Even if you know about contraceptive, such as condom or pills, they often do not know where to get them or how to use them correctly. Young men mention lack of knowledge more than young women. Also, men do not usually see contraception as their responsibility. Maybe that's all I can say. Less and more, I apologize. Thank you very much for your attention and see you again. I'm back to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Miss Dinara, for the really cool explanation. For the webinar participant, if you guys have a question, you can be safe in advance. Alright, then let's go to the second presenter. She is Abir Reva Ayuningtyas. Miss Abir, can you hear my voice?
Yes, Sasqia, I can.
Alright, good. How are you, Miss Abir?
Pretty good, Sasqia. How are you?
I'm pretty good too. Alright. Okay, without any further ado, Miss Abir, time is yours.
Thank you, moderator. I really appreciate the introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be speaking with all of you today to explore the topic about characteristics of youth and reproductive health risks and consequences. I will try to make it as clear and understandable as possible. However, please let me know in the chat box if anything requires additional clarification. I am also happy to share supplemental materials if anyone is interested. It gives me such pleasure that we can share sometimes. So let's get started. The first topic that we're going to talk about today is characteristic of youth. The, net, the limited use of contraceptive is firstly influenced by the characteristic of youth. At this stage of life, most young people focus on the present and tend not to plan ahead or anticipate the long-term consequences of their choices. Many unmarried youth think of contraception or family planning as something married couples do. They do not think of themselves as planning a family and they may have difficulty discussing contraception. Most youth also do not think they are at risk, seeing themselves as invulnerable to potentially dangerous consequences confidence to be such a pregnancy and STIs. They may lack the motivation or confidence to be successful users of methods. They also may be embarrassed to seek out services or may not be assertive enough to get their needs met. Many youth lack the power and skill to use contraceptives, especially young women who must negotiate the use of condoms with a male partner. Many young women are forced to have sex and have no control over contraceptive use. There may also be cultural expectation or beliefs that limit the use of contraception. Next, please. Young adults also lack access to contraceptive service or methods. Most clinics are not designed in a way that will be inviting to young clients. Providers are sometimes reluctant to give contraceptives to young people, especially to those who are unmarried. In some countries, laws or policies prohibit provision of contraceptives methods to unmarried youth. Often you'd lack the transportation to clinics or money for transportation. They also may lack money for services and for contraceptive. Young people may be afraid of being judged by providers or adult clients, or they may be worried about being discovered by their parents. Young women may be concerned about having a pelvic exam. They may only be willing to seek out services anonymously or from someone they truly trust. Next, please. The next topic that we're going to talk about today is reproductive health, risk, and consequences. Next. In the most cultures, young unmarried mothers face social stigmas that can have harmful psychological and social impact. Pregnancy usually means the end of formal education. In many sub-Saharan countries, girls are expelled from school if pregnant, according to a review of adolescent health rights. In Kenya, for example, some 10,000 girls leave school annually due to an unplanned pregnancy. Becoming a mother at a young age alter basic life choices in terms of careers, opportunities, and future marriage. It is a major economic burden. Those who are already poor are more likely to remain in poverty. For economic reason, in some countries, young unmarried mothers resort to prostitution to support their children. Any of these consequences can lead to depression, loss of self-confidence, lack of hope, and other adverse psychological conditions. However, in a few cultures, women are expected to prove their fertility, and early childbearing, even outside of marriage, can improve a woman's status. The consequences of early pregnancy are much more severe for young women than for men. But some young men may also bear some social and psychological consequences, especially if they leave school to support a child, reducing their opportunities for education or economic advancement. These consequences also affect the lives of the children. Many teenage parents lack the experience, skill, and resources, and that they need to raise their children. Next, please. If a young woman is pregnant, intended or unintended, she needs prenatal, delivery, and postpartum care. Many young women, both married and unmarried, do not seek prenatal care. Prenatal care is important because it is an opportunity to learn about proper pregnancy care, including good nutrition and signs of possible complications. It also gives a provider the chance to assess the woman for risk factors, such as anemia, hypertension, or infections. Young women under age 16 and in their first pregnancy need to be monitored closely during delivery because of their increased risk. Many maternal and child deaths result because a mother does not receive timely care for obstetric complications, including obstructed delivery and hemorrhage. Ideally, a young woman should either deliver at a health facility with a good quality emergency obstetric care or have immediate access to such care. For all women, the immediate postpartum period is an important time to check for possible bleeding and infection. For young people and first-time parents, the prenatal and postpartum periods are good times to provide information on contraception, breastfeeding, childcare skills, and child health. Next, please. Unintended pregnancies among young women account for at least 2 million unsafe abortions each year worldwide. Abortion may be unsafe for a number of reasons. Safe services may not be accessible or affordable for many young women. Therefore, they may try to self-induce or have the procedure performed by an unskilled or non-medical provider. Due to cost and other reasons, young women are also more likely to postpone abortion until after the first trimester, which makes the procedure more risky. Young women with abortion complication may delay getting treatment, which can worsen their condition. Greater access to family planning among young women can reduce the number of unintended pregnancies and reduce the number of unsafe abortions. Next. 3 out of 5 women hospitalized for abortion complications are under 20 years of age. According to data from Africa, Asia, and Latin America, complications from unsafe abortion include infection, hemorrhage, injury to reproductive organs, intestinal perforation, and toxic reaction to substances or drugs used to induce abortion. This complication may result in infertility or even death. Whether there are medical complications or not, young women may face negative psychological and social consequences after abortion. They may feel remorse or guilt, or they may encounter negative reaction from peers, family, providers, or society. Next, please. Young adults are at high risk for STIs, including HIV, due primarily to their behaviors. Even if sexual active youth do plan ahead to prevent pregnancy, they still may be vulnerable to sexually transmitted infection if they do not use condoms consistently and correctly. Most youth have little knowledge of STIs and their symptoms. Many do not seek treatment, or they attempt to treat themselves first and only later seek treatment at a clinic. The risk for STIs is greatly increased for anyone who has multiple sexual partners, or if their partner has multiple partners. Young people who start sexual activity at earlier ages are more likely to have more than one partner, thus increasing chance of exposure to STIs. Young women are more susceptible to STIs than young men because of biological factors, especially cervical ectopy. This is a normal condition that is present the most female adolescent. Also, females are more of symptomatic than males. In some countries, young people are at high risk because economic or family problems force them to seek work in the sex industry, or young adults are at risk because they may be coerced into sexual relations. Young women may be targeted by older men because these women are believed to free of STIs. Next, please. STIs can be divided into two general categories, those that can be cured and those that cannot. The curable STIs are mostly bacterial. If not treated, some can lead to pelvic inflammatory disease or PID in women. Untreated PID can cause chronic pain, damage the fallopian tubes, and result in fertility. Untreated bacterial STIs also can cause infertility among men. Infertility can be a problem for young women in cultures where social status depends heavily upon childbearing. Even more tragic are viral STIs, especially HIV, which leads to AIDS and is almost always fatal without expensive drug regimens, which are largely unavailable in developing countries. Globally, at least half of those currently infected with HIV are younger than 25. The incidence of AIDS is increasing rapidly among young females. Learning that one is infected with an incurable STI can have serious physical and psychological consequences in individuals. The rate of HIV infection among young people is harmful to the larger society as well, weakening the workforce and reducing the number of future leaders in the social fabric of a country. Next, please. In some countries, young people, particularly women, face sexual abuse. Rape is the most obvious form, but abuse also includes sexual assault, incest, involuntary prostitution, and other harmful practices. These types of abuse can result in physical injury, unintended pregnancy, STIs, and psychological trauma. Those who have suffered from sexual abuse are more prone to low self esteem, earlier consequential sexual activity, and high risk sexual behaviors, such as multiple partners. However, many young women also have strong resilience and with health can heal and be filled with asset for future generation. Well, I think that's all about my presentation about the characteristic of youth and reproductive health risks and consequences. I hope that what I have said is easy to understand and can be useful for all of you. Thank you, and I will return the screen to the moderator. Moderator, please.
Okay, thank you, Miss Abir, for the incredible explanation. Next, we continue to the last explanation by our third presenter, Ade Yuliana. Miss Ade, are you here with us?
Okay.
Nice. How are you, Miss Ade?
Fine.
All right. For Miss Ade, the screen is yours.
Okay. Thank you, moderator. It's a pleasure to be able to chat and share knowledge with all of you today. On this occasion, I will discuss about STI or HIV risks and consequences priority for young adults. Next. Young adults may be at higher risk for STIs through both behavioral and biological susceptibility. While AIDS awareness campaigns have alerted youth in general to the dangers of HIV, many still believe it can happen to me and continue high-risk behaviors. Also, many lack knowledge of other STIs. Many youth, even if they know about the risk of STIs, do not use condom consistently or correctly. Young adults may lack communication and negotiation. Making condom use difficult. When you are coerced into having sexual relation, they cannot negotiate condom use. Other high-risk behaviors include having multiple partners or a partner with multiple partners. This can include either having multiple partners at the same time or having a series of monogamous relationships. Those who are married may be knowingly or unknowingly at increased risk for STIs through extramarital sexual activities of either partner. Other factors that appear to increase the incidence of high-risk behaviors include drug and alcohol use. Women appear to be more susceptible to STIs than men due to biological factors. Young women may be even more susceptible because of hormonal changes and lifestyle changes. Ectopic develops when the cell that line the inside of the cervical canal extend onto the outer surface of the cervix. These cells are more vulnerable to infections such as chlamydia and gonorrhea. Also, theoretically, the cervical mucus in young women is less thick, possibly making them more susceptible to infection. Okay, next please. Uh, okay, next topic about STI consequences for young adults. STIs may result in such symptoms as vaginal or penile discharge, painful urination, abdominal pain, or genital sores. STIs can be transmitted from mother to infant during pregnancy, delivery, or breastfeeding, and can result in miscarriages, stillbirth, premature delivery, low infant weight weights, or infection. If left untreated, STIs can result in chronic disease, infertility, or even death. Young adults and the children may also have severe psychological and social consequences. Economically, years of productive life are often lost. especially with HIV or AIDS affecting one's family, children, and the whole society. Next, please. Here for the next about HIV high risk for young adults. Approximately half of all HIV infections worldwide occur among youth under 25 years of age. In some countries, as many as 30% of all new HIV infections are among young adults, with twice as many in young women as in young men. HIV is transmitted by an infected person through semen, vaginal fluids, blood, breast milk, or in utero. Between 1/4 and 1/3 of even born to women infected with HIV become infected. Called perical or perinatal transmission, this can occur in utero, during birth, or through breast milk. The percentage of infected infants is substantially lower when HIV-infected pregnant women take the drug nevirapine, which is relatively simple to use and inexpensive. HIV infection leads to AIDS or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, a severe depression of the immune system resulting in various opportunistic. Uh, it typically occurs several years after infection and is almost always fatal. Several new drug treatments show promise in delaying the onset of AIDS, but they are expensive and are generally not available in developing countries. No vaccine against AIDS is available at present. The most potent weapon against HIV or AIDS is prevention. Anyone who works with youth must remember the urgent need for effective HIV prevention strategies. Okay, for the next slide about STI counseling. Counseling for STI prevention is essential. You need to understand that sexual activity, both heterosexual and homosexual, puts them at risk for STI or HIV transmission and that they are particularly vulnerable. They need to understand that their safe sexual behaviors is abstinence. For those who choose to be sexually active, safer behaviors include assessing if their partner is infected, mutual monogamy, reducing the number of partners, engaging in low-risk sexual practices such as mutual masturbation, and using condoms. Condoms need to be made readily available to young adults, even those who are not yet sexually active, so that they are prepared for future sexual activity. Young adults need to understand the importance of consistent condom use and be shown how to use condom correctly. Okay, next. For the next slide about assessment of STI risk. Many youth do not know if they are at risk for STIs. Various techniques have been developed to help youth and others determine if they are at increased risk. Especially helpful are individual or group counseling sessions. Young men and women may feel more comfortable when they are in groups of same sex. Counselor can discuss the symptoms of STI, which include vaginal or penile discharge, painful urination, abdominal pain, or genital shorts. Many women regard most vaginal discharge to be normal and not realize that some discharge may be a sign of infection that needs treatment. Hence, women need to be educated on the differences in normal and abnormal discharge and how to prevent STI. vaginal discharge. Partner, age, whether he or she has had a new partner in recent months, history of previous STI infection, whether the partner has other sexual partner, or whether the partner has STI symptoms. It is difficult for many women to know if they are at risk because they do not know whether the husband or boyfriend has multiple partners. The behaviors of male partners may be the greatest risk factor for men. Current, current research is exploring whether such risk factor can be formalized into a checklist of questions on demographic, behavioral, and related factors, called a risk assessment tool, and whether use of this tool can help to manage contraceptive choices and STI diagnosis and treatment. Okay, next. Okay, next topic about STI management, diagnosis, and treatment. The only way to be certain if someone has an STI is to identify the disease-causing microbe with laboratory tests. Laboratory tests are expensive and require a client to return for result and treatment. Hence, WHO has developed an approach for diagnosing and treating STIs called syndromic management, which is based on person symptoms and signs in the context of the local epidemiology of STI infection. This syndromic management approach works well in some situations. For example, when treating men with genital ulcers or urinary discharge for gonorrhea and chlamydia infection. However, the syndromic approach has not worked well in diagnosing vaginal discharge. In addition, about 3 of women with gonorrhea or chlamydia. Uh, for women with gonorrhea or chlamydia infection have no symptoms in the early stages. So syndromic management is not helpful in these cases. In fact, the main cases of vaginal discharge globally are chlamydiasis and bacterial vaginosis. Research is underway to determine if various types of risk assessment tools can be used to make STI diagnosis and treatment of cervical infection more effective. Findings thus far are inconclusive, indicating that any risk assessment tool must be modified to individual countries and regions within countries. These tools must take into account prevalence rates for various STIs and cultural factors such as whether women willing to report having multiple partners or are likely to know if the husband have had multiple partners. A full STI management program involves training providers, diagnosing STIs, treating STIs with antibiotics, and tracing of partner for treatment. During treatment, counseling should emphasize the importance of partner notification and treatment in order to prevent infection. If program decides they cannot afford to offer all of these services, they can at least offer STI or HIV preventive services and develop a referral system for diagnosis and treatment with another clinic. They can tell you about the need for treatment and refer them to the other clinic. Okay, maybe that's the presentations of the material from me. Then I return to the moderator.
All right, Miss Ade, thank you for your excellent explanation. Well, our presenters have done their job. Next, we will enter the second session, which is the Q&A session. In this Q&A session, we open the opportunity for 6 questioners to ask questions. For participants who want to ask questions, you guys can use the raise hand feature that is already available. After that, I will invite questioner one by one to ask question, or you can just type it on the column below. Well, it looks like there are already a few questioners ready to ask their question. Then I invite Aisyah as the first questioner. To Aisyah, please activate your microphone and tell us what the question is.
Thank you for being given the opportunity to ask. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Siti Aisyah. I want to ask Mrs. Ade, how can an appropriate solution address the problem of reproductive health among young adults? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aisyah, for question. I will answer it. Provide sex education to young adults. Research shows that sex education is useful because it can provide an understanding of one's potential, that young adults how to delay sexual activity and increase contraceptive use. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ade, for the answer. Is the answer clear enough, Aisyah?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mrs. Ade.
All right. Well, since the answer is obvious, let's move on to the second questioner. The second questioner will come from Amanda. For Amanda, now you can activate your microphone and please tell us your question.
Okay, thank you for being given the opportunity to ask. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Amanda. I want to ask Mrs. Dinara, what is the importance of maintaining reproductive health in youth? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question, Amanda. I will answer it. Maintaining reproductive health is very important, especially for teenagers, because youth is the best time to build good habits, especially good in maintaining cleanliness, which is a very important asset in the long term, especially for young women. In addition, it is really related to how we guarantee the survival of humans from generation to generation so that the next generation can be of higher quality that the current generation. That's my answer. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Miss Dinara, for the answer. Has the answer from Miss Dinara been able to answer your question, Amanda?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mrs. Dinara.
Yes.
All right, well, next let's go to the third questioner. And our questioner is Nadya. For Nadya, please turn on the microphone and tell us about your question. Nadya, please.
Thank you for being given the opportunity to ask. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Nadya. I want to ask Mrs. Abir. In the presentation early, it was explained that there is a risk of unsafe abortion. Then, how about safe abortion in accordance with health standards? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nadia, for the question. It's such a great question. So we'll answer it. Abortion is safe when carried out using the method recommended by the WHO, appropriate the pregnancy duration, and by someone with the necessary skills. According to WHO 2022, there are three important domains for the provision of abortion care: law and policy, clinical services, and service delivery. Recommendation regarding law and policy cover 7 areas. The first is the criminalizations of abortion, a reason-based approach to permitting abortion, the maximum age limit for pregnancy set for abortion, and then a mandatory waiting period before accepting a requested abortion, third-party authorization for abortion, restrictions on where health workers can provide abortion services, and objection or refusal intended by the provider. Clinical service recommendations address abortion methods and related clinical care through the provision of information and counseling. Service delivery recommendations include those relating to which categories of health workers can provide clinically relevant services. So that's my answer. Thank you, Nadia.
All right, Miss Abir, thank you for the great explanation. I think the explanation from Miss Abir is clear enough and already answered your question, isn't it, Nadia?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mrs. Abir.
Okay, well, next let's go to the fourth questioner, and our questioner is Aisyah. So Aisyah, please activate your microphone and tell us what the question is.
Thank you for being given the opportunity to ask. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Siti Aisyah. I want to ask Mrs. Dinara, why do economic factors affect adolescents' reproductive health? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisyah, for the question. I will answer it. The economic factors affect adolescent reproductive health because this factor is related to poverty, low education levels, and ignorance about sexual development and reproductive process, as well as remote living location. That's my answer. Thank you, Aisyah.
Thank you, Miss Dinara, for the answer. Is the answer clear enough, Aisyah?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mrs. Dinara.
Okay.
All right, well, since the answer is obvious, let's move on to the fifth questioner. The fifth question will come from Amanda. For Amanda, now you can activate your microphone and please tell us your question.
Okay, thank you for being given the opportunity to ask. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Amanda. I want to ask Mrs. Abir, is there a hormonal impact if someone use contraception? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, for the question. I will answer it. Yes, there are various impacts on users of hormonal contraceptions, namely menstrual cycle disturbances, and thank you.
Is that enough to answer your question, Amanda? Well, next, let's go to the sixth questioner or the last questioner. Our last questioner is Nadya. For Nadya, please turn on the microphone and tell us about your question. Nadya, please.
Thank you for being given the opportunity to ask. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Nadia. I want to ask Mrs. Ade. Is there a chance that someone with HIV can be cured? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Nadia, thank you for the question. I will answer it. Although HIV or AIDS can be treated, the sufferer will never recover if a person has been diagnosed with HIV and recorded and reported in the HIV Information System or SIH. Then the death will continue to exist until he dies, so the number of cases is cumulative. That's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, is that enough to answer your question, Nadia?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mrs. Ade.
All right, all the questioners have asked their question and have also received answer from the presenter. I'm here to declare that the Q&A session has been complete and now we will enter the last session with closing. In this closing, I will present the conclusion of our webinar today. So, youth hold the future in their hand and the entire society needs to be invested in their progress with opportunities to learn and explore their curiosity. Young people have much to offer. However, they face many challenges as well. The HIV pandemic has become a youth epidemic, which is poses huge barriers for many youth. In the face of AIDS, many young people have learned to change their behavior. Adults can support youth in this effort by encouraging more open conversation about sexuality, working to reduce stigma regarding those infected with HIV, and supporting youth involvement in programs that affect their lives. As children become adults, all youth need to learn about their sexuality and reproductive health issues. This includes a wide range of issues, including delayed sexual debut, limited number of sexual partners, and condom use for those who are sexually active. Well, finally, we have arrived at the end of the event, but before ending today's webinar, let's capture our moment first. And to the operator, please be able to take picture, and for participant and presenter, let's give our best pose. All right, I will count. 1, 2, 3. Wait, once more. 1, 2, 3. All right. Before I end today's webinar, let's give applause to our presenter because they have provided to or have presented extraordinary material. All right, now we really come to the end of the event. Then to thank all the participants of the webinar and thank you for our presenter for taking the time to share with us here so that hopefully we can know more about reproductive health. Before closing today's event, I ask the moderator apologize if during the course of guiding event, I made a lot of mistakes either to action reward. Thank you. Hopefully we can meet again in another time. Stay healthy and happy everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam
wabarakatuh.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you.